Hello everyone, welcome to the Everything Dodgeball podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Leitinger. And today I'm joined by the masterminds behind the Dodgeathon, the 48-hour dodgeball Guinness World Record attempt that has been completed successfully almost a week ago. And I'm here with Meg Dixon and Alex Such. Since Alex was already on this podcast before, we're going to spare you the details of his background story for now, and we're gonna jump in with you, Meg, if that's fine for you. So please just give the listeners a little bit of an overview. Who is Meg Dixon? What's like your dodgeball story, and how did you get to join this sort of ludicrous endeavor?
I've played dodgeball for, I want to say, about 10 years. I've only ever played for one club, so I play for Wessex Wolves, who I think are probably a little bit more well-known now. They've always been around and about, but we're pushing for it a little bit more these days. So we've got a few teams up in our Super League, the league that we obviously have over here. And that's kind of just been what I've done for the last 10 years. I've not really branched out that much. We did a little tournament. We came over and we were at Vienna Calling last year, earlier this year, which was my first experience my second experience other than UDO earlier in the year. That's as much external to the UK as I've done in terms of dodgeball. But I've played for the last 10 years, mostly cloth. And in the last couple of years, I've picked up a little bit of foam dodgeball. And I play for a team called Hampshire Hogs, which has some very cool kit this year. And I think Alex will testify to that as well. But I've just started playing foam, and that's actually how I ended up in conversation with Alex about various things to do with dodgeball, what kind of things we agree on, what things we'd like to do differently. And it was just sort of through that conversation that we started realizing that maybe there would be some things that we could do that we kind of align with. And he asked, would I like to come on board and help support Dodge Central with various different competitions and events that we could do. And that's where the Dodgeathon sort of came in. I think it was something that Alex has wanted to do for quite a significant period of time. And he sort of said, is anybody up for helping? And I said, let's try, let's give it a go. And then it sort of went from there. And I think we were quite ambitious with the timeline, but we pushed for it. and that's kind of how it all started.
Okay, that is cool. So, Alex, obviously, you are the founder and mastermind behind Dodgeball Central, and I think you've been pulling the burden for this past few years all by yourself, maybe with a little bit of help from the occasional dodgeballers. But so, what basically brought the two of you together from your side, and how is it to have a partner in events like this?
Well, I mean, firstly, like if Meg didn't come on board Dodgeathon, if it happened, which to be honest, I don't know if it would have happened within the time frame, it would have been such a mess. Like Meg was like astronomical in actually helping organize the event. Her use of spreadsheets, documents. I can't remember exact job role in her normal day-to-day life, but apparently it crossed over quite nicely, and it was just monumentally helpful in helping to get everything organized, helping schedule all the players, the volunteers, just everything. It meant that I was able to have someone to talk to, because normally I don't. I'm just on my own. So I was able to bounce ideas off of, and it was very much a partnership throughout the entire thing, which was absolutely, I think, pivotal really in making sure we delivered a good event, not only for people watching at home, but also for the players and the volunteers actually in the event itself. Because it was, I think we can both agree, whilst we knew it was going to be a big thing going into it, it was a lot more, I think, than perhaps kind of thought from the start. Because, as Meg says, I've wanted to do this since I used to work for British Dodgeball back in 2020. So it's been a long time coming, and but as you know, as you mentioned, I've just kind of been on my own doing all sort of the media side of things with Dodge Central, and whilst that's been going, quite well, there's only so much Dodge Central can grow, and when on my own basically, and if I want it to grow more in order to help the sport grow more, then I need to bring more people on board basically, and as Meg said, we started talking at Foam League just about kind of, admittedly, it started first as kind of complaining about other things in the sport and how we weren't happy with how certain things happened. And everyone obviously likes to throw their opinion around, but rather than just sitting and complaining, we thought, okay, why don't we actually try and put some of our opinions, towards something? Let's actually start some of our own projects, some of our own events, and kind of see how the community might respond to it. So we decided to do that, and we decided the first thing to do, rather than starting a small little tournament or something, we thought we'd just go massive and just do an entire 48-hour marathon, because apparently that's a smart thing to do. I applied to Guinness World Records, and they came back with a very long list of rules and guidelines that we had to follow, with a lot of grey areas that made it a little bit more difficult to try and organise correctly. And it kind of just went from there with a lot of meetings. But it just went from there, and it's just been Meg and I working behind the scenes like crazy to get the event sorted.
Crazy. No, I mean, on the one side, I really want to emphasize that point, because I think that is something everyone likes to do, and dodgeballers are no exception to that, to like complain about stuff that is going on and about everything that could be better, and everyone has a very strong opinion. But really good on you guys to not just have those opinions, but really trying to put some effort into it, not some effort, pretty much all the effort, and trying to do something that might help the community. And I think if more people could take a little bite of that and try to do a little bit of that themselves, that would be really good for the community. Because as we know, and you're a prime example for this, people who try to do anything for the sport mainly don't do it for any money, mainly put a lot of time and effort into it. And so the more people that try and give a little bit of their time, the easier it gets for the whole sport and the community, and maybe the little bit less complaining we have to do. But that was just sort of a personal note. Other than that, first of all, you talked to me about this idea a few months ago, I think, or maybe it's maybe a bit longer. And I was like, okay, that sounds completely crazy. And you were like, if I would be willing to do it. And I was like, on the one hand, it sounds really, I don't know, like something you want to be part of. But for me personally, it just seemed way, way too crazy and just physically not sustainable for people of my age. But you still kept to the idea, and I really respect that a lot. So what kind of, you had that idea for a long time. What was like the turning point where you really felt it, like you had to do it? And when did it sort of crystallize into a real plan?
So yeah, as I've had the idea for a few years, because I think it's kind of been, I saw like three main positives from doing the event. One, like it was always going to be a charity-based event, that we would do the entire thing, kind of not to get money for ourselves, but just to try and raise money for some good causes. And very thrilled to say we did that quite successfully. Like we beat our goal massively.
Yes.
Which was amazing. Like the support we got from the community was just unbelievable. And then the other 2 points were that it would hopefully help publicize the sport a little bit, because like when you do some sort of world record, especially on quite a big stage, you usually get a bit of media attention. And whilst we haven't hit, say, like, the major media in the UK, like, we have gotten a fair amount of promotion and other people sharing, and it kind of helps bring the community together, which is nice. And then finally, it's just kind of quite cool to say we've got a world record. So, and I think that was a bonus for a lot of the people taking part. Like at the front of it, it was, okay, we're going to raise a load of money for charity. We're going to bring the community together to do something. And then at the same time, on a personal note, it's quite cool to say that you've been a part of a world record. So when Meg and I, and there are a couple other people as well who have kind of in the background that are going to be helping with some future events, we were discussing the events that we'd like to do in our first season of Dodge Central events, basically. And I think we pinpointed 4 main ones. And Dodgeathon Aussie was the biggest, the hardest to organise. And I'm quite a strong supporter of Movember. And obviously that usually takes place in November. So because I wanted one of the charities to be Movember, I was like, that it kind of makes sense to try and do it in November. So it kind of suddenly set us a deadline that was only a few months away. So it was, okay, we probably need to apply to this and get the ball rolling, which I think happened just before Euros. I think, because I remember I heard back from Guinness during Euros saying that we'd gotten approval to do it.
Yeah, I think you messaged me saying we've got the go ahead from Guinness now, but we'll start chatting when I'm back. And it was a moment where I thought, yeah, we've really not got a lot of time
No.
to get this off the ground. And I think the conversation that we'd had leading up to that, we'd had a couple of months where we'd started planning, what would we like to do? When would we like to do it? And a lot of things we'd kind of earmarked for 2026. And this was kind of the only event that we kept coming back to, going, when are we going to do it? What would we like to set our timeline as? And I remember coming away from the conversation and saying to Mark, my other half, Alex really wants to do this in November. And he's kind of looking at me like, okay, that's not a lot of time. And I said, yeah, we're going to catch up after Alex is back from Euros. And he was like, oh, okay, so even more time needs to pass before you start planning this. But yeah, it was, I think, just before Euros. And when you got back, we sort of gave it a week because you had so much footage and so many photos and things to go through that you wanted to get through and kind of sort. Because as we've said, there's no rest for Alex. He's constantly churning out as much media as possible, which is incredible because I don't think there'd be anywhere near as much coverage, certainly not in England. But if Alex wasn't doing what he's doing with all of the Dodgeball Central stuff. So we kind of gave it a week and then we reconvened and we set a firm date and we said, right, we probably should start looking for venues, shouldn't we?
Okay, so the special ingredient to all dodgeball events, time pressure, was definitely there, which is really important. I think every tournament organizer knows that is dodgeball in a nutshell. So you had that going for you. And so, Meg, when Alex approached you sort of with that topic, what intrigued and convinced you to want to be part of that? And like, what do you bring to the table where you think like you could really be the important other half to Alex to really get this thing going?
So I think for me, as we said, we sort of had we kind of became friends over complaints around the current situation, and we want dodgeball to be big. I think anybody that's in the sport wants dodgeball to be big. We want to see it become that Olympic level sport. We want to see the uptake and the community grow. We talk about how dodgeball is a lot bigger, but reality is that the community really all know each other, and that just shows you that we've got a little bit of a way to go before we get there. So for me, I've always been a massive advocate for trying to get the sport as big as possible. With my own club, I run the juniors. I was chairman for a couple of years. I'm now treasurer and admin and various other bits and pieces within my own club. So I've always been I want to push to try and get it big and get it advertised. And, it's such a spectator sport. And I think playing in it is great. Watching it sometimes is even better. We all, I think anybody that's invested in dodgeball always likes to go back on YouTube and watch some amazing games. And some of the footage that we've got over the years has been incredible to watch back and watch how those games have progressed and the skill level. And it's just such a good spectator sport that for me, anything that can grow it is a good investment. So when Alex sort of said, I'd really like to do some more events. I'd like to do something that's a bit different from the norm. I'd like to do some, raise some money for charity at the same time. But realistically, what we want to do is get engagement. I just said, yeah, let's do it. And then he said, I'd really like to do a 48-hour world record. And I sort of said, okay, that sounds interesting. And I was all in. And then we kind of got the message back from Guinness, and I thought, this is going to be a lot more complicated than I think we initially anticipated. The rules, as Alex has already said, they were so extensive, and there was a lot of grey areas. What can we do? What can't we do? What rule set are we working to? Because there's 3-4 different rule sets. So we had to kind of clarify all of that. But I think one of the biggest things for me personally is that I love a challenge. And I think it's something typical that a lot of people say, but if I see a problem, I really like to try and get hands on and fix it. And if I see something as a challenge, I'm all in. So he kind of raised this idea, and I thought, yeah, okay, I could probably help organising that. And one of the things that I like to kind of pride myself in is my organisational skills. Don't always pull it off. Some people will say that I maybe am not the best at replying or coming back to people, and that's when things get a little bit overwhelming, you just need to take 5 and have a little bit of a mental reset. But I know I like to pride myself on my organisational skills, so I sort of said, yeah, okay, I'm up for it. Let's give it a go. And that's kind of where the spreadsheet was born. And we started planning a load of things and writing loads of lists and started getting on board with, okay, actually, we're going to need, an emergency plan. We're going to need an idea on what we're going to do for the health and welfare of players. We're going to need to know what we're working to in terms of rotation, because they can't be playing for 48 hours straight. How many players are we going to have? What are we going to do for food? How are we going to deal with it with the venue? And that was another grey area, was can they even leave the venue, which transpires they couldn't. So how are we going to deal with that and that barrier? And who are we going to need in terms of volunteers, and how many volunteers were we going to need, and what falls into that category? So it was just taking all of that information and categorizing it, and then starting to plan out individually, what do I need for this, and how can I deal with that, and starting to get all of those things together. That was kind of my, I say expertise, but it really links in with what I do on a daily basis. I have to pivot quite quickly when I'm working, and a lot of my job is around operational planning and pressures and procedures. And so I'm kind of very used to dealing with those sort of things. And I thought, yeah, okay, I could probably do this. I think I underestimated quite how much we had to do, but I think we pulled it off quite well. And we managed to get to the point where I kind of got there on the first day and thought, if we can get through the first 12 hours, I'll breathe. And we got through the first 12, and I thought, okay, if we get through the next 12, I'll breathe. And I kind of lived and died by that over a sort of 72-hour period. I was like, okay, we'll reach this, and then I'll breathe. Okay, wait, maybe a little bit longer, and then I'll have that moment where I think, okay, we've done it. And I genuinely don't think I had that moment of, wow, we've done it, until that kind of final clock went and we'd finished.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I believe that. So maybe take us back a little bit to like the preparation process. What do you guys feel like were the biggest obstacles to overcome? What kind of things, you touched on a lot of things there, but what were like the main obstacles that you maybe didn't even realize before, because it was just an idea, and the idea seems completely crazy to me, but it seems like, okay, getting people together to play a lot of dodgeball shouldn't be that hard if you don't think about it at all. But once you start thinking about it, a lot more comes up, and probably with time, as time progresses, all the issues even start to realize themselves. So what were like the main objectives you had to overcome, and what were like the main surprises that really tried to derail you?
Yeah. I think off like the rip, before we started going, deeper and deeper into it, the main things were, okay, let's pick a date and a place. And those are probably, like with any event, they're the two main things. And from looking at the calendar just in the UK, because we wanted to do it in November, that obviously only gave us really sort of 4 weekends to work with. And the first 3 all had an event on. So we're like, okay, lovely. We've got our date, nice. End of November, that works nicely. We can, go out of November with a bang. And then the hardest part was then the location, because I'm not sure what it's like in other countries around Europe or the world, but most leisure centres and venues in the UK, they usually have rules or laws in place that you can't be there overnight. Like they shut off all the power and everything, and even if you were to be there overnight, the cost usually to have like a sports venue for 48 hours would just be astronomical. And even if you were to say, okay, we're doing it for charity, could you put a discount? Because Dodge Central realistically has never brought in any money at all. We didn't really have a budget to be working with. Everything was just, okay, I'll pay for that later. We'll deal with it later. Let's just shove that to the side. So when it came to the venue, we were like, quite quickly, I thought of the venue up in Hartlepool, and Meg and our other friend April were like, actually, yeah, like I think both Lucinda and Steph, who are the two amazing women who run Hartlepool Mavericks, which is sort of northeast in the UK. They basically built the UK or Europe's first dedicated dodgeball venue. And they've basically just they spent years developing it after getting some funding from the National Lottery, and they just own it. Like they run their own sessions all the time. They hire it out to other people, such as sort of ballet and gymnastics. But I thought, okay, if they're part of the community already, I already had a bit of a rapport with them from being in the sport for a few years. And we thought, if we can get them on board, it might hopefully be cheaper than a normal sports venue. They also obviously know the sport, so they would have a better understanding of what it is we're trying to do, and just hopefully the overall process would be a lot easier. And being the amazing people that they are, and they really understood what we were trying to do, in that we were trying to raise money for a good cause. We were trying to help just kind of bring the community together and do something big. They gave us the venue for free, which, to be honest, solved like one of the biggest hurdles we had. And we're still like I'm still unbelievably thankful to both of them, as well as Andy as well. All 3 of them were just amazing. Like, not only they didn't just give us the venue, which was a perfect place because it had the main hall that we needed to actually play the match. It had extra rooms for the players to store their own belongings, to sleep in. There's a cafeteria which we were able to utilize to help prep food. But they also were there throughout the weekend, supporting us on individual levels, asking if we needed anything. They provided their juniors who were part of the club, and they helped with ball retrieving and other little things. And honestly, Hartlepool Mavericks were like absolutely pivotal to the record attempt, realistically.
We are able to donate so much to charity because we haven't had to pay for certain things purely through the generosity and the dedication of other people. without them, we could have been looking at £6,000 worth of fees for just hiring a hall. The fact that we were able to avoid that cost completely meant that all of the money that we were raising, the ambition was always going to be all the money that we were raising goes straight into the charities. But there was a conversation at one point saying, well, how are we going to pay for it? And one of the things that we spoke about was, well, if we're raising money, do we take the cost of what it was to run the event out of what we've raised and then donate the rest? And how do we do that? And again, that was part of our planning process, was what promise are we going to make on the other side of this for when we actually donate this money to charity? What are we going to do in terms of donation? Are we going to donate the full amount? Are we going to have to take some money out? Are we going to have to charge people? How do we approach that? And the fact that they turned around and said, no, you're having it for free, it's fine. And it really was as clear cut as that.
Yeah, Lucinda didn't give us an option.
It was just, oh no, it's free. And it was just in a message in our group chat, don't be silly, it's free.
Yeah.
And wow. It was that moment we just sort of went, and it was just that insistence of, no, it's free. We are grateful that you're bringing players to us, that you're bringing an event to us, and we want to support in every way that we can. And it was that moment where we sort of thought, okay, this could be possible. We could get this done. And that was one major thing just out of the way instantly. There was a little bit of a back and forth on a date and a time and a location. And as soon as we got the date and we asked them if it was free and if we were able to, and talking with them at the event as well, Steph said, Lucinda normally works over the weekend, but she cleared the entire weekend to ensure that we could run the event, and make sure that the centre was completely free for us to use. They were constantly checking in. Can we go to the shops? Is there anything that you need? Are you all okay? That mental check-in as well was always there. So yeah, without them, the event wouldn't have even started to happen. So we are eternally grateful to them and the generosity that they showed by just saying, no, it's free, was just another level. I don't think either of us expected that. And we kind of said, no, we insist on paying something. And they said, well, we insist that you don't. So it was a bit of a back and forth, but it genuinely made it all possible with them just being as generous as they were and as involved as they were from the start.
Awesome. That definitely takes one big thing out of the way, which probably in a real world setting without dodgeball support would have been really tough to overcome unless you find different sponsors that will take over the cost for that. So with that out of the way, how did you convince people to take part of the Dodgeathon?
Oh gosh, a lot of convincing.
Do you have anything on them? Did you blackmail them, or how many of them were there out of free will, and did they know what they were gonna get into?
I actually think it was kind of, it was, I'd say people were reluctant, but they really weren't actually. And I think that was the thing for us, was that it really shows the appetite for people wanting to be a part of something this big, because I know that Alex kind of approached a lot of people that you play with at a club level, that you know quite well, and you sort of said, hey, would you be up for this? And I think the initial response from a lot of people was, yeah, absolutely. Over time, we had a few people that kind of went, actually, do you know what? It's not feasible for me, and I don't think I can hack it. But there were so many people that were really keen, and we did a form that we put out on Dodge Central's stories and on the page to say, register your interest. Are you interested in being a player? Are you interested in being a volunteer and a witness and a referee? And 90% of the responses were, no, I really want to play.
Yeah.
So I think convincing people wasn't too difficult. It was then explaining to them just quite the extent of what they were signing up for. Yeah. That was when people's minds changed.
Yeah, because I think as Meg says, a lot of people in the UK will just jump at the idea of being able to just play dodgeball. And I think when it's quite a unique event, everyone's like, hell yeah, I want to do that. And whilst a lot of people initially were like, yeah, I'd like to take part, but I'd have to see, there were so many different reasons that people would have to kind of drop out from the event, and all of them completely valid and fair, whether it's the travel to the venue, because admittedly Hartlepool for a lot of people is quite far away, and then there's also just the time commitment, because you would have to travel up on the Friday, you would have to have the Monday off from work, you are then most likely dead for the remainder of the week. There were so many different things that would contribute to it, and because, as we said, we were only really asking people a few months out. Some people had already gotten plans, so there were a lot of reasons people weren't able to. It was, and then for some people, it was just, you know what, there's a lot of dodgeball on at the moment. I don't know if a week after nationals I can feasibly do 48 hours of dodgeball, and it was all very fair. And we said to like everyone that was initially saying yes, like, there is no hard feelings if you suddenly need to drop out. Like, it is a massive commitment from you as players. So we kind of gave people a hard deadline, which was quite a lot closer to the day of, please just, like, up until the state, feel free to drop out, but like up at this point, we're going to need to know, because we needed to order the kit. And obviously that had people's names on, so like that gave us a kind of a hard deadline where we needed to know. But as Meg says, I started really by asking people that I knew, because it would be a big commitment, but not just for them, but it's a big commitment to the event. Because if you suddenly drop out 5 days beforehand because you go, actually, no, I can't be asked, it really does kind of ruin it, not just for, say, myself and Meg, but it ruins it for the other players, and the entire thing can crumble very easily. So we needed people that realistically we could rely on, but also people that we thought would just be good personalities to have as well, because it was quite tough at times, and you needed people that would be, bring some positive, like, fun energy. So it was trying to just build a group of players like that, and we had a lot of people already from my circle, but also from Meg's circle. I think we had 5 people from Wessex played.
We did, yeah. I think it was in the end. It ended up being quite a big group of us from Wessex, whether we were playing or supporting, actually. And I think from my perspective, it was so nice that I kind of had so many questions at a club level. People coming up and asking me, can I help? Is there anything that I can do? And although that number obviously wasn't huge, it was so lovely to have people be that invested. And I think that goes, it goes for everyone, really. There was always questions at all the league meets, going up to the event, always a question. How can I help? Can I be involved? Is there anything that I can do? What else are you planning for it? How's it going to work? But yeah, we had quite a lot of people. I think Mark was instantly in. Alex and I were having a conversation, and Mark turned around and said, "Yeah, I'll play," without even considering anything else. Yeah, no, I'll play. I'm in. And that was that, really. He was dead set. And I said to Alex, I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm definitely going to organise it. I'm not going to give you a condition that it's on the condition that Mark plays, but he'd really like to be a part of it. And at that point, I think we didn't quite have 24 people, so he was very much one of the ones that immediately was like, yeah, I'm in, down, let's go. And as soon as I was like, yeah, I'm going to help Alex organise it, he was like, cool, so I'm playing then, fantastic.
He saw it as a free ticket.
yeah. And he was like, well, if you're not playing, then someone's got to take your place. So and I was just like, that's fine, if you want to play 48 hours of dodgeball, be my guest. Sure. So it was really nice to see that level of investment really early on. And the other side of it as well was that, even though we couldn't say yes to everyone, because it was such a large amount of people that had said, yeah, I really want to do it. And we kind of had to weigh it up. As Alex said, it's not necessarily just about are they able to physically? It was also that, do they know enough people? Are we going to gel? And I will say, that didn't hinge on whether or not they were definitely going to be invited. It was pretty much a first come, first serve basis. We kind of got those forms through, and we sort of said, oh, okay, well, we actually only really have 3 or 4 spots for players left. So we had to kind of, take those people that had filled out those forms and sent them through, and then email everyone else and just say, look, really sorry, if there is anybody that drops out, we'll let you know.
And they did.
Yeah, and they did, but would you still like to be involved in other areas? And there were a few people that turned around and said, yeah, actually, no, I'll still be involved. So it was really nice to have that level of sort of, I think we ended up having sort of 50, 60 people fill out forms in the end, or at least register interest in some way, shape or form. So it wasn't a small amount of people, but it did make our lives very difficult picking, who's going to get those final spots in the teams.
But yeah, I think something that we tried to do, as Meg said, it wasn't just about personalities. It was also, we tried to get people that knew each other or that were in the same club as someone else that was already involved, because it would then help the travel. That they could go up together. So like we invited a lot of people from, say, London Storm, London Spartans, Wessex Wolves. Just so like I invited quite a few people that were couples within Dodgeball, just to make not just the travel, but then also the weekend itself easier, because when you're doing something that's quite difficult, quite challenging, it's nice to have the people that you actually know there to kind of help support you. So there are quite a few factors, and as Meg said, we did end up having a few dropouts for different reasons, sadly. Some people suddenly weren't able to, as something important popped up. Unfortunately, Finley Brittenell Craven, he's out with a knee injury. So we had to suddenly bring someone else in like very last second, and then it's Meg and I are then suddenly really stressed. It's like, oh my god, we need a new person. So it's like going to the list, and we'd kind of like we had a list of like backups in place ready, and it's like, contact them quick because they need to get the kit order in like 12 hours. And it's suddenly I'm then they're just trying to panic and order spare tops just in case someone else drops out. But we got there in the end. And even Finn, bless him, he still came and helped on the weekend and did so much work. At first, he was basically the host of the live stream, engaging with everyone, and I think that really helped get us a lot of donations in from the rip. And then he then went into the rest of our volunteer roles, because
he
had
got
to have
rotated
a lot. Yeah, I don't think he had to say. He said he said he was happy to help, but he really ended up being very much needed, because one of the other challenges we had was not just the player base, because we tried to make sure we were mixed, because we had to play to, well, gosh, there's so many things we had to do. But one of the things was when it came to picking a rule set, we decided to go with WDBF, because that way when other people are doing the rule set in the future, it means everyone can just use world's rules. But also there was a stipulation that said the amount of players you're allowed per squad is determined based on the governing body you use. Now, the original record holders had 10 per squad, but WDBF allow you to have 12. So, okay, that means we can have those 2 extra players to help with shifts and rotations, which helps massively. So we then had to get confirmation from Guinness that we were allowed the 12 based on WDBF rules, which they have now amended the rules to basically go off WDBF rules. And then it was but then you have to make sure you have an even amount of male and female players. And a lot of our women dropped out in like the span of a week, and then it was trying to get everyone in, and it was trying to keep up with the rules was quite difficult sometimes.
It was probably one of the biggest challenges, was ensuring that we were meeting the rule set laid out by Guinness. And I think when it came to the timetables, which I'm sure I could talk about for a very long time, but I will keep it brief. we, as part of the setup, and one of the things that we sort of laid out from the beginning is that no one's going to be playing for 48 hours straight. You know, you need rest. It's unreasonable to be playing for that length of time. And by having 12 players instead of 10, not only was it better for the players, it also made my life insanely easier. I had various iterations of different timetables for players where they would be on court or off court resting. And with 10 players, it was, I think that probably would have been make or break for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it was really difficult to manage a suitable rest break with only 10 players each side, because it just didn't lend to a decent amount of time for those players to actually come off and rest and eat and shower and sleep. And it was all of those sort of factors. And as soon as we got confirmation that we could have 12, I sort of breathed a sigh of relief, because I was sat in bed at about 11:30 at night trying to do these different timetables, basically tearing my hair out, going, I can't do it with 10 players. I can't do it. It's too much. And we got the confirmation that it was 12, and I sort of just sat back in my chair and just thought, well, thank goodness for that, because otherwise this could have gone really differently.
It would have been a lot harder.
It would have been. And I think that was one of the things that we laid out to kind of everyone at the beginning when we didn't have confirmation. Is we didn't get confirmation that it would be 12 players until quite late on into the planning process. So we were planning for 10 each side, and we laid it out we were very honest with it when we were talking to everyone, those original 20 people, just saying, this is going to be hard. And I'm doing my best to give you suitable rest breaks, but it's going to be a tough challenge. And as soon as we got that extra 4 people, I kind of said, okay, it's still going to be tough, but you'll only have to do 24 of the 48. Everyone gets even rotations, even rest. And it did make my life a lot easier when it came to planning. So I'm forever grateful. But the other side of that is that we then also had all the volunteers who also had to be rotated, because they were, according to the rules, not allowed to do more than 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
So they do a little bit of a shift doing, being a witness, where we had to literally write down everything that was happening, which I think was probably one of the most taxing things of the entire
100%,
weekend.
100%.
We had these witnesses. We had to have 2 independent witnesses at a time, where they would sit down and they'd have these forms, and essentially they'd have to set for set write out, Alex was hit out by Elisa, Izzy made a catch, Mark blindfolded, and it was genuinely set for set plays. And then at the end of the set, it was, okay, set ends at 10:52. Score is 790 to 630. And then its set begins at 10:53. And it was genuinely play for play that they had to write these down. And we had to do that, for the whole weekend.
I do agree. I think it was the hardest job. I thankfully didn't have to
like
do
complete torture, in my opinion. Like playing 24 hours, that doesn't seem feasible and it's not a good thing. But 4 hours of writing everything down that happened in a dodgeball set, it is like, that just sort of broke my brain a little bit thinking about that.
It was honestly so much, but we literally, like, the event could happen with but for the actual getting the record, could not happen without those volunteers. They were absolutely imperative to it. And May probably knows a little bit better than me, because she was actually scheduling it, but we pretty much had the bare minimum we could have, because like we also, as well as having the 2 people doing the logbook, we also had to have at any one time a qualified referee. And we had a few people say that they'd happily come and help referee, but they weren't actually qualified, whereas they had to be qualified. So when our team of volunteers, they were basically either off resting, doing the logbook, or ball retrieving, or refereeing. and they just had those three main roles pretty much, which they were, whenever you looked around the room, you could usually see the volunteers just always doing it. They probably had as little rest as the players themselves. When I was on court, I was unable to look after the live stream, so they were trying to look after the live stream for me. And honestly, they were like the true unsung heroes of the event. And thankfully they were in the overall group photo we took at the end, but I wanted originally to get just a photo of the volunteers, but I think I was so dead at the end of it, and my brain was just
delirious.
Yeah, my brain was space. But honestly, without our volunteers, I'm not going to name them now, because if I accidentally leave one person out, I'll never hear the end of it. I would feel really bad. But honestly, without all the people that helped the event, the records, it wouldn't have been possible. So we truly owe it to them, because it was the most tedious task that they had to do.
And I think it was, as I say, I did one of those witness, because I scheduled myself in, and I think, hindsight's great, because looking back at it now, I kind of scheduled myself in where I couldn't fit other people. So I took all of the extra shifts, essentially. I had to make sure that I obviously gave myself rest, but I was coming off, and then I'd kind of scheduled myself in, and I was going, can't sleep, got to go and make breakfast for everyone. So I'd kind of come off and be like, okay, right, got to go do that. And then I'd be like, and I'm supposed to witness again in 3 hours time. Wonderful. Go do that. But I did a 4-hour witness slot on the first night from 3 a.m. till 7 a.m. And I was just sat there literally in a sleeping bag, hood up, with a clipboard and a pen and these sheets of paper, going, Alex, hit out, Elisa, all right, okay, and they've made and then it would be like, right, and 4:02 a.m. And it's just sort of like, and I got through the first hour, and I looked at Ross, who was one of the witnesses who was witnessing with me, and I looked at Ross and I was like, we're a quarter of the way there, and he was like, oh. We just sort of had this collective sigh of like, okay, right. And we got to the 2-hour mark, and we were like halfway, and just sort of like these little celebrations throughout the whole thing. And you'll hear me on the live stream as well, me going, right, red's off, blue's on. And we'd kind of, the way that I'd scheduled it is that all of the players had a pair, and every pair had a color. And the schedule was literally with their wristbands.
Nice.
It was that's your pair. You look after your pair for the whole weekend. You look at your buddies for the whole weekend, and you're rotated in, so know when your color is coming on and know when your color is going off. And that's how we managed it. And it just meant that we could then track the switchovers properly. So when we were witnessing, we knew who was coming on, who was leaving. And it just meant that the whole thing was coordinated to an extent where you knew where you had to be, when you had to be there.
It was as little thinking as possible. It was just trying to make everything as automated as possible. Yeah, little room for error, basically, which Meg organized fantastically. She'd printed off posters everywhere, which so in each of the main rooms you could see if you needed to suddenly be on, and that helped massively, because part of the rules is because we had the subs, there was no pauses or breaks in the game at all. All you were allowed was the 30 seconds in between sets of the reset, and that's when we'd have to do our substitutions. That's when every couple hours we would go, okay, let's actually change what half of the court we're on, because when you're looking one way the entire time for 12 hours, it's like, okay, I'm just staring at a wall. So we would change every so often, but then you suddenly have 30 seconds to grab your bottle and to get everyone changed, get everyone to put the balls in the middle and reset and go again. And those were always quite fun, chaotic moments. But it was a lot of organizing. And I think the entire event was just leaning on each other. Not just the players supporting each other, but the players supporting the volunteers supporting the players. And admittedly, I did not get any sleep on the Friday night before the event, because I was I think everyone left at about 11:30 helping set up, but when it came to all the media equipment and the tech, no one really knew how to help me. So I was kind of there until 6:30, getting it ready on my own. So I started the event on zero sleep, which was not wise. Meg and my buddy for the weekend, Izzy, kind of bullied me very, very neededly
Oh yeah,
to make sure I was eating and getting like
sleeping,
the odd nap. And most people,
drinking, looking after
yeah,
yourself in general. I think.
because I
I think.
definitely didn't do it enough.
I think at one point I brought you down your sandwich and I just said, right, okay, when was the last time you ate? And you were like, I've not had anything yet. And I was like, cool. And I bought him his lunch sandwich.
Yeah.
And like the snacks, and he was sat at the live stream sort of setup that we had, and I just said, right, cool, I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. You need to have eaten at least half of the sandwich. And I just genuinely gave you 10 minutes. I came back and you were like, that wasn't 10 minutes. And I was like, it was. It was. You need to break now, please. And
I forgot about that.
It was stuff like that over the weekend. I mean, I bought you down like snacks, and I bought you down a banana, and there's the photo with you just asleep holding it. You know, and I think it was just one of those things. And I kept saying that to everyone. Have you had your, like, have you eaten yet? Have you drunk? In the morning, it was all these sort of, we did like hot breakfast sandwiches. And I think the one of the best moments was everybody waking up on the Sunday morning to have their first round of this breakfast that we'd organised. And they were sort of walking out of the sleeping room and they were kind of bleary eyed. And I was like, right, do you want a sausage sandwich or a breakfast or a bacon sandwich? You can have one or the other. And they kind of all looked at me and they're like, what? It's just that sort of moment of delirium and I was going,
so
well,
weird.
You all need to eat, so let's go. And it was just sort of making sure that, and I was sort of ticking everybody off, and we did me and the guys that were off, the volunteers, all helped me. You know, everybody had a lunch order of the sandwiches, so I'd stand there at about 11 o'clock in the morning and I'd be cutting into all these baguettes and, you know, making up all the baguettes for them to eat at lunchtime when they came off. And it was, you know, it wasn't that people weren't able to order food or have food, but it genuinely, I think as time progressed, it became really apparent that actually it was more and more needed, that you needed someone to prompt you. Have you had anything to drink? Have you had anything to eat? You know, I need to kind of do that. And that's where obviously the health checks and things came in as well, which was one of the things that we discussed before we launched. So one of the things that no one will have seen on the live stream and probably wasn't really highlighted was that we set a really strict health check rule. So we had two of my friends who very conveniently actually live in Hartlepool, a qualified nurse and a paramedic who I've known for a really long time. They live about 10 minutes away from the venue, which was just incredible when I found out. I was like, how close to Hartlepool do you live? And I was calling them as they were in the gym in the centre of Hartlepool. And I just said, cool, so I'm going to need your help. And one of the big things for me was that, you know, playing dodgeball for 48 hours is a bit of a risk. I mean, people who have played at international level will know you've got a tournament for multiple days in a row. And even then that takes a toll, let alone when you've got limited rest breaks. You're not eating
limited
necessarily
sleep,
as well as you should be. You're not sleeping as well. That recovery period isn't there. And so I said, cool, okay, let's identify what the risks are if you're playing for 48 hours and let's try and nullify those risks. So at the beginning, before anyone had even stepped foot on court, everybody had their blood pressure monitored. They had their heart rate monitored. We checked their O2 levels. We made sure that we knew if they had, you know, anything like asthma or any other sort of, you know, oh, my knee, I've got an injury that I'm prone to with my knee, or oh, I you know, if I get hit in the head, I've got to be really careful because I've got problems with concussions. And so we had all of those things noted down. And then pretty much every 6 hours for the first sort of 24 to 36 hours, we were having them come off and getting checked. So they'd have these sort of baseline checks. Is your heart rate still okay? Is your blood pressure still okay? How's your hydration levels? And most importantly, how do you feel about carrying on? And I think that was one of the big things for us was let's check in on everyone mentally as well as physically, because there might be some people that feel like they need to carry on.
Yeah, we didn't want that pressure there for them, because I mean, like for Guinness, we didn't need to do these medical checks. It was like for Meg and I, like off from the start, we said, like, realistically, at the end of the day, yes, raising money for charity is important. Yes, trying to get the record is cool, but we don't want it to come at the detriment of people's health. So that's why Meg was like, let's do these medical checks at certain increments, because we want to check in. And like, I think a lot of people, like the people we had, they were a good group of people and just actual people. We didn't want them to feel like they had to continue and that they were going to let people down. And we were like, look, we have extra players. We can make amendments to schedules and things. Like, if you need to stop, you need to stop. And like, if we think you need to stop, we're going to tell you you're not allowed to carry on. And like, at the end of the day, health is the most important thing. I mean, Meg's partner, Mark, unfortunately, Mark had to stop in with, I can't remember what time it happened.
It was quite early on, like across the 48 hours. I think it was into the evening on the Saturday. He landed a bit funny on his ankle, and I got a message because I was out making dinner for everybody, about to bring it to the venue, and I got a message saying, "I've hurt myself," and I was like, "Okay, fine, that's okay. I'll come and have a look." So I came down to the venue, and he was there with his ankle, and it was
ballooned.
Huge. It was huge, and it was bruised. And I was like, okay, well, you've been playing for 10 hours. Let's sort of see, you can miss your next sort of shift on court, as it were. We're gonna play with 5. It's still within the rule set that we can play with a player down. That's fine. So they played with 5, and Mark was off having his ankle looked at, and we ended up going to the urgent treatment centre, and they were like, yeah, it's fractured. You've fractured your ankle. Yeah, it was. And I think for him, mentally, it was a very different path to other people. He was just gutted that he couldn't continue. And I was quite harsh with him. I kept telling him to sit down and put ice on his ankle, and just every time he stood up and started trying to walk around, I was like, please sit down. I want you to be resting and recovering. But yeah, we gave it a good 12 hours before we went to the urgent treatment centre, because we thought, it might just be, you've been on your feet for the last 10 hours. Let's just give it a little bit of a rest and see how you feel. And thankfully, we've, since then, he's actually recovered really, really well. And I think he was just gutted that he couldn't continue. But he just landed funny, and it's on the footage, and it literally looks like nothing. He just lands, and then he kind of makes a bit of a face, and then he continues playing for half an hour. Okay. So it was kind of one of those moments where he then came off and he was like, oh, actually, that really hurts. And unfortunately, that just meant that he couldn't carry on for the event. And we had a few of those where Tasha was saying, oh, my knee, I can't stand up and carry on. And unfortunately, at that point, Mark was already out of that team. So we had to kind of work out, when can we play with 4? When can we play with 5? When
Team November got battered a bit.
Yeah. So, but it was really, I think it kind of put everybody at ease a little bit to have just those, Kai and Lucy, who were part of that medical team that we made. It was really nice for everybody just to have that kind of touch point and just know that someone was going to come and check up on them. So if there was anything that was untoward going on that they weren't 100% sure about, you had 2 people that could look at you and go, yeah, okay, you're okay. Or no, you're not continuing. And thankfully, there wasn't anybody. Yeah, there wasn't anybody that we kind of got to mid-event and went, oh my goodness, you can't carry on. It actually got to the point where Kai and Lucy came out of one of the checks and said, have they really been playing for 24 hours? Because their heart rate and their blood pressure looks great. And
I got better as the event went on. I think, I mean, mine, they did on one of the things, they went, Alex, that's like really high. That's the highest of everyone. And I went, I haven't slept yet. They went, that'll do it. And like, that was at the very start of the event. And they're like, yeah, you'll be fine. And to be fair, like, that's something we haven't really touched on yet, but it was such a weird, the concept of time just disappeared. It because like for the players, you're so start, stop, start, stop. And Like we had like a little, like had like two sleeping rooms outside of the main hall. I don't know what's like for everyone else, but I put my sleeping like bed in the corner of the main hall where you can it's just out of view of the live stream, because I was very paranoid about looking after the live stream and all the media equipment. Like when I was off court, I was usually trying to do that, but I would then also get very politely, shall we say, told by Meg or Izzy to go have like a 30-minute nap, and like you'd wake up from like what was way too short of a sleep, and you'd be getting told by like one of the volunteers or someone, "Oh, Alex, you're on court in 2 minutes," and I'll be like, "What?" I'm like, "Okay," and I still had my shoes on, my knee pads on, because I was literally just like earphones in, like to block out noise, and just lie there, and like your body, because I had like something on top of me, I was warm, but then you take that off and you spend the first half an hour freezing and like shivering because your body had gone into like a mini hibernation, and you just lost all sense of time completely. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, it's 3 a.m. and I need to now play dodgeball for the next 3 hours straight without a break. And I was like, okay. And then I was off for an hour and a half, and then it was, okay, Alex, you're back on for 3 hours. And I was like, okay. And it was so weird, and I lost track of what day it was. I was like, oh, do you remember when that happened? Was it this morning? Was it yesterday? Was it an hour ago? Was it 5 hours ago? And it was really weird.
It's funny because talking to some of those that took part, you know, that I know at a club level, one of the girls turned around to me, Poppy has turned around to me and said, I've now developed the ability to nap absolutely anywhere.
Yeah.
Because she said she woke up and she's waking up in a panic going, I need to be on court in a minute. And it's just because it's just she'll fall asleep and then wake up and be like, oh, I need to get up and play dodgeball. And it's kind of like, it's we've all had a bit of a joke about it, but it genuinely was, for that 48 hours, it was like a time loop. No one really knew what was going on and who they were,
really,
and
it was
and
so
what was
surreal.
happening. And I think what was really nice is that you had the Hartlepool team who could go out of the venue and go to their respective homes and sleep. They were coming in and going, right, are you okay? Can I get you anything? Can I get you a tea? Can I get you a coffee? Have you eaten? And you know, they were kind of, I had Andy turn around to me and say, are you okay? Just look me dead in the eyes and say, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know. Because I genuinely was just so sleep deprived, and I think I'd been really quite strict with everybody else, and everybody else turned around to me and said, okay, well, let's practice what you preach, go have a sleep, you know, I get that you've got stuff to do. And I kind of worked out when I came back from it on the Monday, we got home and I was like, I think over that near 72-hour period, I've maybe had 6.5, 7 hours sleep.
Yeah.
Just from where I sort of would do what I needed to do, and then I'd go and I'd be doing the food, or I'd be, you know, running to the shop to get the extra bits that we needed, and it was just sort of that, at the time, just adrenaline. And we got to that end point, and I was like, my whole body just sort of went, okay, and now we need to sleep. And I think everybody sort of said, you know, it took them 2 or 3 days to just feel a little bit like they were back into the rhythm of normal life, because it was so strange to go from the concept of you don't get your normal hours sleep, you're not waking up at normal times, you know, you don't see daylight for some of them because they're not leaving the building.
That was weird. I literally didn't see outside for God knows how long, and it was just, everything was just so weird. You didn't feel like a normal human. Like as Meg said, I think I was similar, 'cause, not sleeping on that Friday night, stupid, very stupid. I was aware as it was happening it was stupid, but I was like, I think I'm a little, as Meg probably has found out, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist with things, and it's like it's got to be right. So I was like, I'm not going to bed until all of this is sorted. And so I think from like when I woke up on that Friday morning up until I fell asleep in the car on the Monday, I probably had about 5 hours sleep. And it, like when you're suddenly going on court as well to play, when your body's just been asleep, like my legs just wouldn't move, and like everything was just aching, and it was just so bizarre. And I remember, I think Meg was the same. Like, well, at least I was, when the final whistle went, and like at the 48 hours and we won. I've looked back at the footage. Everyone celebrates, arms in the air. I don't move. I'm just completely still, just like, oh. And I think I just let out a massive sigh of, oh my god, we've done it. Because I think for Meg and I, it was a bit different for others, because it's like, oh, everyone else, it's, we've done it, yeah, celebration, thank God, we've got the record, we can go home, we can do whatever. And I think, not to speak for Meg, but at least for me, it was, had those feelings, but at the same time, it was, oh, thank God we've actually done it. Like, it was like months of preparation. Like the 2 weeks, especially the week of leading up to it, was so unbelievably stressful. And admittedly, as we mentioned, we didn't really have any budget. So anything that we actually had to pay for, I was kind of just taking the load off. And because we were asking a lot of the players, and a lot of players found to buy 2 tops, because wearing 1 top for 40 hours is just gross. I was trying to help pay for some of the kit. And I think for me, it was a culmination of a lot of different things came at once. And it was just like a weight had just kind of been lifted. And I just had like nothing left. Like, my brain just kind of spaced. Meg and I did our final speeches to all the players at the end. And as soon as everyone left the hall, I think for about 10 minutes, I just stood and just cried. Not afraid to say, men's mental health, it's good to talk about these things. But I just stood and just cried. And I think it was just so much emotion, and the lack of sleep didn't help. It just all came out at once. And I know Meg was stood with Mark, I was stood with my partner Sophie, and it was just a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a weight had been lifted, and I talked about it earlier. I said, I'll get through the first 12 hours and then I'll breathe. And that kind of, that relief never really came until we got to the end of the event. And I kind of stood there, and I think Alex was looking basically like a little bit like a zombie. And I was like, cool, okay, well, I'm just gonna take the floor for a second. And I just stood there and sort of thanked everyone. And I was very much on the verge of tears. And then I think quite a few people sort of started crying, and I was just there like, I can't look at anybody because I'm going to start crying. And it was just this sort of, but it was a sense of pride. And I think that was it was the fact that we actually got to the end, because we'd said, once we beat the record, if we have to stop early, we stop early. But everybody had such sheer determination to get to that 48-hour point. And we kind of got to it, and we all sort of looked at each other, and I went, well, we have to carry on. We have to finish this out. We can't just stop.
Yeah. There was celebrations, and then all of a sudden it was balls suddenly flying everywhere again.
and it was poor James, who was refereeing, stood there and just went, play 3. He had to kind of carry on. And I think it was one of those moments where I just had that sort of, that sense of, oh my gosh, I can't believe that something that we've taken so long to plan has paid off in such a spectacular way. And I've had, the last week I've kind of been living on that high. There's been so many posts, we've kind of put the photos up, and I, again, a massive thank you to all the volunteers. But I've had so many people across the board, just send thank you messages. And one of my good friends, Vicky, who came and volunteered as well, she sent me a message, and she was like, I'm just so proud of you for being able to plan this and do it. And I was just like, it's genuinely hasn't kind of sunk in some ways. I kind of think, oh yeah, it's just a thing I did. And then I was looking back on it, and I was thinking, actually, do you know what?
It was
that's big. And it was just that realization that we've actually done something incredible. And we've done something for 2 incredible charities as well. And, we made a joke, it's Team Movember versus Team Copperfield. And I think Finn put it quite well when he was, commentating on the stream. We were one massive team. There was no 100%. There was no one side without the other. And I had those conversations with the players as well. And I think throughout the event, everybody had a bit of an emotional moment where they had to just take 5 and take stock of what was going on, because it was so surreal in some moments. And I remember saying to some people, it's no, we can't do this event without a single person here. Yes, okay, you might be able to take a set off, or you might be able to have a shift where you're not playing, but this event doesn't happen without every single person in that venue. And so even if you're not able to contribute to the level that you'd like to right this second, you're still doing the most by just being here. And it was a really stark moment for some of them, realizing that actually they didn't need to go all out, but just being there was enough. And
60%.
60%, yeah. And I think it was those first sort of 2 hours where everybody was just like so excited, and and balls were flying, and everybody was going at like 100, and then we kind of all settled and went, yeah, that was really silly, let's not do that again. And it was just that sort of moment of going, we can't be at 100. But I think looking back on it, and the one thing that I will say is that actually the quality of the dodgeball play, despite how tired everyone was,
not bad,
was really good.
It was a decent speed. Like I really expected us to just be like walking, especially in the night shifts. We'd have to like tell everyone to walk for a couple hours, use their left arms, but it was like proper, like basically like training session games, like at decent pace for majority of it. I think some people, including myself, when you go on for that first half an hour, it was just trying to get the body to move because you hadn't actually warmed up. You just literally gotten out of bed, and it was just trying to like get the body to move. But we were playing at like decent pace, and like so people were making, like, even on the last couple sets, people were making like some phenomenal catches and jumping around.
Jumping, using their knee pads. I was like, I'd have lost the ability to use my knees about 2 hours into this. So
yeah, I'm pretty bruised.
And it was that, and people were coming off and going, you could see the chafe from where they'd obviously had their knee pads on for essentially 2 days. And and it was that moment of going, right, try and swap out your knee pads, let them dry out if they're sweaty. And it was all of those sort of like genuinely just those moments going, it's incredible to watch these people who are so sleep deprived actually play a semi-decent level of dodgeball, to where they can still mess about and still have a joke with each other and still pull off some amazing catches and some great hits. And yeah, it was definitely one of those moments where I kind of sat there and thought, when I was witnessing at the end for those last couple of hours and writing it down, and I'm still writing, Sammy makes a catch, Alex dodges top court, Izzy makes a tombstone catch. And it was kind of one of those things where I was like, we're 48 hours in. I shouldn't be writing that people are catching at the line and dodging multiple balls and being able to, trade top court. But it was still, the level of dodgeball was really high, and it was really nice to see that level of commitment.
Actually. I really wasn't expecting it, but it was amazing. And I think, as Meg says, like there is a massive sense of pride for like the volunteers, the players, and like I've had same as Meg, I've had a lot of messages from different people, whether it's people involved with the event or people that were just supporting it from home, just trying to congratulate, and everyone just being like, it was just, the community did just come together. And I think that's what I humbly, I think that's a strength of Dodge Central. It's what I want it to be. It's the Dodge Central is run by the community for the community. Like, we're not trying to we're not trying to like earn money for ourselves. We're just trying to help the sport grow, and we're just trying to make it a better experience for the people in it. And I think we've, at least with this event, we've done that, and we're going to try and continue doing that. And as I say, like, we've raised £7,000, and I've kind of struggled to kind of think, okay, is that a lot of money? Is that not? Like, some charity fundraisers get like hundreds of thousands, but I'm like, you know what? No, like, I originally set a goal of £3,000, so actually, no, like, we've crushed it, and we're able to send over 3,000 to each charity now, and like, we are realistically a niche little sport, and the fact we've able to do what we've done, like, I'm insanely proud but also insanely thankful. As you hinted at the start, Stefan, it's Dodge Central for a long time. It's kind of just been me sat with a camera, sat editing photos, and trying to just put stuff out there for people. And this was kind of like the first time it's really felt like a massive team effort the entire way. from start to finish. From the countless like late night phone calls that Meg and I have had trying to organise the event, to speaking with players ahead of time. I like when I was sat designing the kits and sharing the kits with everyone, and everyone started got every time something new happened, everyone would get a little bit more excited, and then I was then actually handing the kits out to people, and everyone, you could really start to see it bubble up in people's faces, and then throughout the event, it felt like everyone there was a part of Dodge Central, and I think that's kind of been one of the nicest things for me on an individual level, that so many people came together for this one event, and we've pulled it off. And obviously, we're still waiting for confirmation from Guinness. We currently need to actually collate all the evidence together, the video footage, all the logbooks and everything, and actually submit it to Guinness, which they're expecting. But touch wood, we have actually got the world record. But if for some reason we don't, I'll still be insanely proud of what we've accomplished and of what each individual has accomplished, to be honest. And
it's a good excuse to do it again.
Yeah, we'll go again. Dodgeathon 72. Yeah, it was an insane challenge. It was so much more work than Alex 5 years ago thought it would be. It's like, you just get a hall and you play dodgeball for a long time. It's fine. But I think we could have done it like that, admittedly. But I think Meg and I, being who we are, we wanted it to be done properly. We wanted the players to get a good experience. We wanted to raise as much money as possible. We wanted to make sure everyone's health was like at the forefront. And humbly, I think we smashed it. Like bringing Meg on, like you haven't really got like a job role, but that's because none of us get paid. So like, there's no job roles. But I kind of, when I explain Meg to people, I'm like, she's basically our event coordinator. Like it's probably like one of the easiest ways to say it. I don't know. But yeah, Meg coming on has been astronomical. Whether or not she wants to continue going after the event we've just had, I don't know. But we have got, excitingly, we have got 3 main events that we're looking to put on in 2026, at least in the first half of the season, not going into the second half. So we've got some exciting things to come. And I think with Meg and some of the other people that are going to be helping, I'm very excited to see where Dodge Central can go and what more we can bring to the sport, really.
Beautiful. I mean, that was really just really fun and nice for me to listen to that whole story and getting a little bit of feel and a little bit of the vibes from there, because from the outside, stuff like that looks so different, I'd say, and it looks so easy and so clean, and obviously, and lots of the points you touched on were the thoughts that ran through my head when you first asked me, and I was like, and first like initial thought was like, of course I want to be part of this seems awesome, and then I was thinking like 1 second and I was like, how
the reality sets in.
Yeah. And I'm a very realistic person about stuff like that, so the romantic like fun part of it just melted away and was like, 48 hours, it doesn't matter how much of that time I have to play, how much of the time I get to sleep, how much of the stuff around it, but that's just so intense. And there is going to be on that order of magnitude, putting up an event, there is so much stuff that gets into it, and there are tiny big things like booking a venue, getting the players, designing the kit, and each and every one of those things is a really big thing, and they're still tiny compared to the amount of stress and thoughts and decisions that have to be made in between. Like, those big things are obviously things that people from the outside can see and they're like, wow, you're doing a lot of stuff. But as you said, like the week before, it's just a constant load on your mind where you're constantly thinking about it, second guessing every decision, trying to communicate with everyone. And there is so much that goes into an event like this. So first of all, from my side, massive congratulations, because that is still, to me, it's absolutely absurd how that I'm not a good organizer, and I always like the romantic, big thinking, big picture sort of stuff. But then knowing what needs to be done in order to make it happen on that scale is just to me completely incomprehensive. So that is absolutely huge congratulations. That is just sick. And then the other part you touched on is like from the outside, I've I've done, I don't know over the 2 days how often and how many hours I had that stream running, but I basically just had it always on my phone running and just checked in every once and again. And when there was a someone commenting, then I had some messages, and I was completely amazed on how solid the game looked, as you said. And I was always like waiting for people to break down. Basically, I was like seeing. I thought in the night shift I would see people limping, or on the next day, and it still from the outset felt way too fresh. And I was often like posting the question like, how are people feeling? Because to me that was just completely mind-boggling how the body can sustain that kind of fatigue and strain over that longer time. So yeah, I mean, after 48 hours, the last two sets, I bet a few bucks on someone doing a leap of faith with 360, just because no one was giving me the answer on how people were feeling. And I thought that would be a sort of objective measure. If you can still pull that up, you're sort of fine. I was just hoping that no one would just jump and break down. That would have been awful. But
Yeah, Elliot tried to. I think it was the
yeah,
final set. Elliot tried to do a 360,
no, he
and
did. He just didn't hit
he
it.
got
But
halfway and just stopped. And I had
yeah,
to like, I remember having to
I
catch
think
him. And
Lecce or someone made a leap of faith after I requested it and was very to the side. No one saw it, and I had to go back to see it. But it happened very, yeah, it did happen, and I was like, okay, that is really impressive stuff. And obviously, the playing is the the thing that everyone sees, and that is completely ridiculous. But the things around it and the organization, all the volunteers, all the people putting their time, money, and just health
Yeah,
on the line for that kind of stuff is completely incredible. And it's something that is so weird to understand and explain from the outside, but it's still something that is like a tiny nutshell of what the sport of dodgeball or lots of community-based events are, and what makes the sport or many leisure activities so great. And I think that is like a real prime example for why this is such a nice thing to do, or why it gives you so much back, even though you, as you said, that was just stress for weeks and months of preparing, and you lost so much sleep and time and money over that um 48 hour for that 48-hour record attempt, which seems like compared such a tiny thing, even though it's so big. And also the money you raised, such an incredible amount for that, the place where dodgeball is right now. I think that is, you really have to put it into perspective of what kind of community you have, who are the people who pay for that, and what the surrounding factors are. So I think it's a massive achievement
thank you.
to really raise that money. And yeah, I think we could go into every minute detail, and I would be very interested in it. But I think that would just explode the time frame. So a few things that I really want to know is like, are there any memories left of those 48 hours? And do you have any like stories or moments or like situations that really stand out when you think back on it, that were like, yeah, in some way or form memorable to you?
Well, I think the one that stands out the most, because you can see it physically on the stream, is Benji's hair. Because that happened within the first 12 hours.
Yeah,
I
because we hit our
remember
goal so quick.
we hit our goals so quickly, and
Yeah.
I'd gone out to make food for everyone, and I came back and I walked in, and I just stood there and looked at him, and I was like, what happened? when did this happen? And obviously he had half of his head shaved for the majority of the event. And it wasn't until I think the final 12 hours that he then did the rest of it, had a mohawk. But
so good. I've got such good footage. I'm going to
and
share it at some point.
It's just it was one of those moments where I said, okay, right, the delirium's already set in and we've not even made it through the first 24 hours yet. And it was funny to see the responses on the streams as well, because you had Benji walk off after one set, and he rocks back up in his next game, and he's just there with half his hair missing. And that was honestly one of the moments where I just thought, do you know what, we've got such a good group of people. The fact that is just having a laugh, is a good group of people that are really enjoying everything. And I think the other thing that stood out to me was that we've come away from the event and the chat that we have with everyone is still going. So everybody's interacting with each other still. Not everybody knew each other very well, but everyone was really grateful, and it was all this thanks and everything. And I think that it was really nice to come away from it, and still over a week later, people are messaging in the chat and having a joke with each other, and it's just been really nice, that sort of shared. I'd say it's a shared trauma. It's not. I think some of it probably felt a bit traumatic when you were getting woken up 5 minutes, by a volunteer shaking you awake, going, "You need to be on court in a second. Come on, let's go." But
PTSD.
I think it was just, it's really nice that everybody's still interacting so much. But yeah, that moment with Benji was probably one of my favorites. And I think personally another favorite of mine is Alex not sleeping and then subsequently falling asleep in the middle of doing something with various objects in his hands. So he's got, there's one with him just holding the banana that I've given him that he needs to eat because he's not eaten yet. And there's another one where he's determined to take photos, and he's set up his stall and he's got his camera in hand, and slowly but surely over the next 10 minutes you just see him start to drift. And then there's a really lovely photo of him just sat there with his massive camera just resting on his lap, and he is sound asleep, courtside in the middle of the game, just sound asleep. And I think that really kind of summed up just how intense the whole thing was.
Yeah.
But I think there's loads of personal moments that I've definitely taken away, but moments that I know that people will have seen, definitely those two stand out, because they're just kind of really sum up not only just how wholesome the event was, but also just how taxing the event was as well.
Yeah. And yeah, I think for me it was the event definitely got better as it went on. I think I was quite stressed at the start. We had quite a few technical difficulties when it came to the live stream. Like I'd bought this basically we rented a router basically that would support the internet for the entire weekend, and it just didn't work. Like when it connected it would be great, but every 30 seconds it would just drop out and it would lose all signal, and that wasn't working. And then the camera equipment which I stream with all the time at Foam League, I've never had issues with, suddenly just wasn't working. And I remember admittedly I was stood on the ladders trying to fix it, looking down at the setup, and almost just kind of had a bit of a cry again, because I was, we'd put in so much work and effort and it just suddenly just wasn't working. And I'd been up until 6:30 in the morning getting everything ready and everything was working, and all of a sudden it just wasn't. And I remember being very upset at that, but thankfully it started to work. And then everyone started flooding the comments with donations and kind of challenges for people to do. And I think for me that was one of my favorite things, was all the challenges that were coming in. And originally we did have a lot more forfeits planned for players, as we were going to reach certain amounts of money or something, we were going to do different forfeits, but I think we were just so busy we didn't get the chance to do a lot of them. But Benji's hair was brilliant, and being in the behind the scenes of that happening, Amanda, his buddy for the weekend, jumped at the idea of being able to shave off Benji's hair. Her face in the photos, she is loving it, and it was that was brilliant. And it's just the little moments on court that was happening. As I say, my buddy for the weekend, Izzy Smith, her energy throughout all of it was just unmatched. It was so funny, and just I think being able to rely on people and like be with your friends in some of those moments was just brilliant, to be honest. And I think a lot of memories slowly come back to me that I can't remember, or I watch the footage and I'm like, oh yeah, forgot about that. And there were just so many positives, and I think, as Meg says, there's a lot of things that you see on the stream or the footage, like Benji's hair or me falling asleep with a banana. But I think there's a lot of more intimate inside things between the players, which is quite nice. Like we joke about 60% all the time. I know because we did reach our goal of one of our sub goals of £6,700. A lot of the players we are actually going to be getting a tattoo to kind of commemorate the event. We're currently trying to get it designed, whether it's based around the 48 hours, around the charities. But I think that's quite a nice thing that quite a lot of people are kind of looking to try and get. And yeah, I think overall just the event, to be honest, like hitting that 41-hour mark, breaking the record at, I think it was about 2 a.m. in the morning, 2:03:18 technically in the morning. Me, Meg, and Elisa popped some party poppers, and that's when we broke the record. And the fact that we're in a hall at 2 a.m. in the morning celebrating that, I think that's a pretty special moment that will stick with me for a while. And
I woke up especially for that as well,
Yeah,
because it was
yeah.
in the middle of my 4 hours, and I was like, I'm not missing us breaking that
Yeah.
record. And I was like, I've set my alarm for 5 minutes too, and I think I woke up and I was a bit like, what's going on? And I
was like, someone get Meg.
my hoodie on. I had my hoodie on, and I kind of shuffled into the hall, and I just got thrust these party poppers, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah. And then like the just looking back at the photos as well, some of the photos are so funny. Like Vicky was helping me take them when I was on court, and they're just so nice to look back on. And then it's just hearing the different stories from different people. Apparently, at one point when I was asleep in the hall on my bed, a ball hit me dead in the face, and I didn't wake up. So and some people said it took them about 10 minutes to wake me up at one point. I was just like conked out. And I remember Sophie was driving me home because I was comatose on the way home. Apparently, I fell asleep with a chicken nugget in my mouth. So, I think, as Meg says, it shows kind of how taxing it was. And I think that's where a lot of the memories will come from. It's everyone being sleep deprived, so just some wacky things happening. And to be honest, I've never been one for a tattoo, but I think it's such kind of a reminder of what everyone did together. And I know, I just look, it's still kind of surreal. It's happened. So much time has already passed. Like over a week has passed since we actually finished the event, which is crazy. And I don't know, I'm thankful we did it. It was always, I say, it was for years I wanted to do, and it felt like it was never going to happen. So that's the things. I have so many different projects and ideas, and Meg was able to actually help me bring that to actually a reality, and we were able to bring that to the community, which was just incredible. And I mean, I think on an individual note as well. Sorry, I'm talking for ages here.
No, it's all right.
I mean, as you know, Stefan, I was out for 18 months with a knee injury.
Yeah.
I had a large part of, was I even going to come back to playing the sport at all? And it's something I struggle with on a personal level for quite a while, and trying to kind of find my place in the sport. And am I just this guy that's just going to sit and take cameras and not actually be able to take part anymore? And the fact that I've able to come back this season, but also take part in a 48-hour event, and like my knee held up. Like my legs were dead. I was cramping like crazy about 8 hours in. So I was having to continuously beat them up with a massage gun. But I think on a personal note, I'm very thankful that my body's been able to get there. And I guess also take a moment just say thank you to all of my friends throughout the dodgeball community who have been really, really supportive in my road kind of back from injury, road to recovery. Like for example, Harry Bignell, the amount of support she's shown me has been massive over sort of the past 18 months. And it's because of people in the community I've kind of stayed in the sport, to be honest. I was very close to leaving and packing Dodge Central up completely. So, the fact that 6 months ago I was looking at completely retiring and leaving the sport, to the fact we've just done a 48-hour world record. I think on a personal note, it's just very nice that I've been able to go from point A to point B, and hopefully with Meg's help and some other people, we can continue bringing some exciting projects. I mean, I know obviously, Stefan, you're involved with one project that's happening that's been announced in the new year, and then we've got some events coming up. So I'm very thankful just for the support that everyone's shown Dodge Central, and hopefully we can continue making more memories, and I imagine will be many more embarrassing photos to come.
Awesome. That sounds absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I think that is also something I hope the dodgeball community learns to really appreciate, because I think like people like you, Alex, or other people who really have a passion for the sport and bring something else to the sport except for just wanting to play, are invaluable to the development of the whole sport and bring the community so much incredible value, that I think it's really important for the community to understand that and really show that appreciation in some sort of way. And I think that is something where everyone can do his little part or her little part, because it's often those tiny things that really keep you going. And if it is almost always about a few people that make you decide to still keep going and put your effort in. And it's never gonna be like a perfect value. I'm struggling to find the English word. Like, it's not, you're never gonna get a perfect salary for the work you put in, but
Right.
it's like those tiny little details, those moments of appreciation, those moments of deep connection, of community, are in the end worth so much more than financial compensation, which is still something that our sport needs to grow to at some point. But I think for now that is all we have, and that is something, a resource we should really try to use more, and maybe put a little less effort into complaining and a little more effort into showing a little bit of appreciation for people who are at least trying to do something for the sport. And it's never going to be perfect for everyone, and there are always going to be flaws, and that's just the stage where the sport is at. And if we want to be more professional and have a perfect product, then we need to have way more money in the sport, and that's not gonna happen overnight. And it's also something that's gonna change the whole trajectory of the sport and the whole community aspect of it as well. So I would really appreciate like the current state of it all, because now it is like in its purest form, I think, where everyone is in it because he wants to be part of it, and everyone puts his time, effort, and in Meg's case, his competence into the sport because they really want to. And I think showing appreciation for that is the most important thing. And so, yeah, I hope also through this podcast people see a little bit more what's going on behind, because like the little community that attempted that world record in Harlem. Well, what's the name again?
Yes.
Hartlepool.
Oh no, wait.
Hartlepool.
Where was it? Where was it originally done? It was because we've done it in Hartlepool when they did it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Somewhere in America.
College in America.
Yeah.
College
I can't remember
in America.
So like those tiny communities that really say, okay, we're gonna do a thing, and from the outside it doesn't really seem like a lot. There is so much going on there, and I think we can really take the energy from stuff like that and try to incorporate it into the bigger picture, and everyone's gonna be just better off for it. And so I think I have one tattoo, and it's a tiny little tattoo to commemorate the World Cup or World Championships in Graz, and I'm not gonna do another tattoo, I think, but I really appreciate the one. So it's like a little remembrance every time I see it in the mirror or something like that. I'm like, it's like a happy little moment, and like I don't know, like a fixed point where you can really, if you see it, it just releases a few endorphins and
Yeah.
it takes you back. So I think doing a tattoo together is a really good idea to just commemorate that event, because that's something you're never going to lose, and all the effort you put into it, obviously even better that it went successful. So yeah, beautiful.
I think that's it. I think that's it. I think it's dodgeball is that community, that small community at the moment.
100%.
And everything that I have now is because of dodgeball. You know, I met my partner through dodgeball, and I now run a junior club. I wouldn't have been able to be part of this if I didn't play and didn't get involved. So, and I think that that's the case for most people. You know, you join at uni or you join because of someone that you know, and you get sucked into this world of incredible people who all have a passion for something, for a sport that we all really love, and to be able to bring so much enjoyment, whether it's because we were taking part in it or because you were watching it, to be able to raise as much money as we did as well. It's quite profound that that's where we are and that's what we've been able to do. And I'm just excited for the next thing. I think Alex was kind of unsure as to whether or not I'd be up for doing anything else, but I'm determined that we have our own version of a 2-day tournament somewhere, or 2 or 3-day tournament somewhere in the UK, and that we can get, our international friends involved.
Expect an invite, Stefan.
I think that's the next thing, is to grow our sport. We all need to be in it, and we all need to be invested. And that sometimes that comes from just turning up and playing, and sometimes that comes from putting a little bit more into the game, whether it be social media and taking photos at every level in every country that you can, and being able to share that with those people and having that investment from there, or whether it be doing a little bit more of the stuff behind the scenes and planning. And I think that was something that, when I got given the opportunity, for me, it wasn't a question. It was just how dedicated am I to wanting to grow the sport and grow what we're doing, and have my something I'm very passionate about become something big. And for me, that was why this was an opportunity, and it wasn't a chore. And I think that's something that kind of carried me through, as stressful as it may have been, was that end goal. So I think that's why we do so much in the sport that we do, and why dodgeball is as big as it is, because although we feel it might be small, I think we've got such a good community of people, not only in this country, but we've got friends and people that we've played with internationally that we can safely say we wouldn't know without this sport. So it's incredible to be able to be part of something that continues to grow it.
Absolutely. So in that line, like, what is up next? What can you tell us about future events, future endeavors?
Yeah. So we're taking a break over December.
You better.
There's not much dodgeball on, thankfully. So it's given us time to kind of regather our thoughts, rest up, and sort of plan what's next. I know on like a side note, with Dodge Central, we've got an exciting kind of initiative that we're announcing in the new year, which people can look forward to. But then in terms of Dodge Central events, something that what Meg and I will be working on is we've got 3 main events we're looking to put on between now and kind of June, basically. We've got 2 which are kind of just like UK 1-day events, both of which are going to be something new, something that hasn't happened yet. So I don't know how much to reveal. And then the third one, which is, I guess, probably the bigger of the 3, which will require some work, is Meg and I would love to bring our version of like a 2-3 day tournament, like Vienna Calling, like UDO, to the UK. It doesn't exist yet, and we thought, you know what, let's go for it.
Let's be the first.
Let's put it on. So we're looking to put that on. Like, won't reveal the name of it yet, or we haven't got the exact date yet. But more details will come soon. And obviously we need to do it soon, so that way people can actually figure out if they can come and book things. But we're hoping, I think, some June, July, probably.
We got to plan it around
Yeah.
our calendar for the season. So we kind of want it to coincide with the end of the season rather than during, because, but equally, we were also, there's the consideration of Worlds, which we obviously won't go into now, but
November time.
We've got to consider those dates as well. So we don't want it to be too close to when some of the international tournaments will be taking place, but we don't want it to be slap bang in the middle of our own season here. And that's purely as well just because of the available dates when you've got people that are doing international training or you've got other things that might be going on because we've got various different leagues and things. So we're kind of hoping, sort of June, July time would be a good time to try and do that. And we obviously need to get it advertised and find a location that can host a lot of people. And then I think we'll crack out the spreadsheets again.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a unique cloth, a unique foam tournament happening throughout the season. And then hopefully at the end of the season, we'll have a massive international event for people to come to.
Sounds awesome. Looking forward to it. All right, so I had a few listeners' questions, and my mobile phone is currently my router, so it's not really close to me, and I don't know if I sort of mess up the internet connection when I go pick it up. So I'm always really bad with the listener question, and so I think I get fewer and fewer because I always forget to incorporate them in some way or form, and the show's been going on for quite a while. So for everyone still listening, awesome, we love you. I think what I can remember is definitely from Sam Richards. He was asking about the maintenance rate. I think it touches on the 60% you were going on about. So basically, I saw the start of the whole thing and I was like, okay, what the fuck are you guys doing? You're really playing competitive dodgeball here. But I completely understand that once you really get to the court and get to play dodgeball, you fall back into old rhythms. So how long did it take you to find the perfect balance, and how do you feel like it like the percentage wise effort and play held up over those 48 hours, and were there some dips and peaks?
Yeah, it fluctuated. I think we said we wanted to start kind of like quite high and excitedly because we knew that's when most people would probably be watching. So we wanted to kind of almost start with a bit of, I guess, a showcase and have high energy. But I think that also meant we kind of stayed at a kind of a higher level than we probably wanted to. And like there were peaks and troughs, I think, not just for the game, but just individuals. Like depending when you came on court, like the first 30 minutes, you're trying to get into it. Then you hit a peak of energy. And then towards the end of your shift, you start to crash. And you would see those dips in energy throughout all the individuals across both teams. And it also just doesn't help that although it wasn't technically a competition, like as you say, although we're wearing two different kits with one team, at the end of the day, we're all competitive people. And there were numerous times that people we get a little over competitive, or someone might think, oh, you've thrown that over 60% at me, I'm going to throw this at over 60% at you. And it would be a little bit of a domino effect. And when obviously people are playing on little sleep, so like things sometimes bubbled up a little bit. But I think for the most part, it was okay.
I think it kind of, that adrenaline hit when we started the event, that was the moment where everybody was like, yeah, let's go. We kind of settled in. I think probably I'd say about 12 hours in is when people really start to find the rhythm. And that was because of, you only had an hour and a half on, then you were off for an hour, then you were on for an hour and a half, and you feel good in that first 12 hours. There's nothing really stopping you from going at 100%. There were some gentle reminders from myself and the other volunteers. And I just said, if you see someone going a little bit too hard, remember and remind them there's another 36 hours to go. Let's try and calm it down. And I think we kind of found that rhythm a little bit. And I think everybody's an individual and everybody's someone's 60% might be someone else's 40.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that was kind of one of those moments where, as players got to grips with one another and their play styles and what they'd kind of settled into, you can see that rhythm change. And it kind of takes place overnight when everybody's like very aware that we're now in the early hours of the morning, that, we needed to kind of slow down a little bit and be a bit more encouraging for everyone and switch it up. And some people may not have found that 50-60% at all, and they may have played at 70% the entire time, or 80%, and it might have been with certain people, it might not have been with everyone. And I do think that originally that dynamic was quite hard for some people, and I know that some people were a little bit like, well, why are you doing that, and why? And as Alex said, there were moments where people kind of maybe got a bit frustrated, but for the most part, they'd come off, they'd reset, they'd come back on, and that mindset would be, no, I'm good, I want to carry on, I'm happy, I'm dedicated. And it was, it was always having to constantly remind people, especially after they'd eaten as well. You'd eat, you digest it, and you'd have that sudden burst of energy of, yes, I can go, when someone else hasn't had that yet because they've been on court for the last 3 hours. So it was really interesting to see how that dynamic kind of fluctuated. And I think that kind of coupled with people passing the balls off or standing there and going, yeah, can you just hit me? I want to sit. I want to sit in the outbox for 3 minutes. And, I think it was, as the time went on, people kind of recognized
it got better
where that line is. And we really settled into that dynamic as time went on. And then we kind of hit that sort of really nice sweet spot for about sort of 24 hours. Everybody kind of, you could tell who was happy and settled and maybe who was still finding their feet a little bit. But yeah, and then we got into that last few sets and kind of everybody was like, let's give it our all. Let's finish on a high.
Yeah. I completely agree with Meg. I think the first 24 hours, there was a lot of fluctuating. As people coming on, playing the first kind of couple hours, people were starting to get a bit tired, starting to get a bit hungry. And it was hard to find the right level, hard to find how people were kind of going about it. I think the second 24 hours was better. Everyone kind of realized what it is we were doing, the level we should be playing at, and it kind of just naturally sorted itself out. And then, the final few sets. So Team November, my team, we were like, we've got to hit 900 points. We don't want to be under 900. So we up the pedal a little bit. So we've just got to win. We've got to get some sets. But I think, the last 24 hours, I think, was a lot better, and everyone was in good spirits. There's a lot of, left-handed throws over the heads, trying to go for some sillier things. And I think it definitely eased off. But a very long-running joke was just yelling 60% at each other. It's quite sarcastically.
And I think Sam, at one point, I think when I was sat down witnessing, he would go up and he'd just be like, oh no, I've been hit, and he'd just go and sit in the outbox because he was like, I just need a minute. And I think that was the outlook of a couple of them. I know that Charlie did the same at one point. He was like, I've been playing for an hour and a half and I just want to sit down. And I was like, do you know what? As long as you start on the court and you're a player and you get hit, it's okay if you need to take 3 minutes off. That's fine. Like just get hit and go and sit down. And I think it was one of those things where everybody sort of, it was how they felt in themselves. But you could tell that there was kind of that rhythm change after the first 24 hours when everybody realized, oh yeah, we are in this for the long haul. We probably need to slow down. And it took some people longer than others, but I think the way in which everybody handled themselves and conducted themselves was incredible. There was no person that I had to go and have a conversation with as an individual. And I think that was one of the things that I said to Alex, is that if it came to it and if needs be, I'd be that person that would go and say, oi, I get it, but chill out. You've got another 24 hours to go. But actually, as much as I had gentle conversations, there was no one I had to be harsh with. There was no one I had to pull to one side and go, this is a charity event. Act and conduct yourself in a sensible way, please. Everybody was conducted themselves and held themselves really well. And I think that was another thing that I'm so proud of everyone for doing, because, you know, sleep deprivation, not having enough food, not having enough water, you know, it's really easy to forget yourself sometime. But everybody was so good at holding themselves to account and reminding themselves why they were there, and just taking that extra second to go, actually, I need to calm down, or actually I'm just going to take myself away for a minute and I'll come back. So I think that was quite good, and it was really nice to see.
Nice. Forgot the other question. I think Vicky had a few. I think mainly regarding whether Alex slept or not. I think one was, did you ever sleep more than 30 minutes on one piece?
You were out for a couple of hours in your 4-hour break at one point, but I think that's because we basically said sleep.
Yeah, I think I had like I don't know how long, but I think that's the thing, is I was always very worried about the event itself running properly, about players, the volunteers. I was trying to check in on like the people doing the logbook, like, have you eaten, have you drunk, have you had breaks, and trying to do the role that they were doing for us. And then obviously looking after the live stream, trying to get photos. I was trying to get posts out on Instagram as the event was happening, and I didn't do as much as I wanted to because it just wasn't actually feasible. So I think, as Meg says, in the second night, I think I think at one point I was asleep for over an hour.
Yeah, you had your 4-hour break, and we kind of just said,
yeah,
go to your corner, wrap up and sleep.
Yeah,
please.
I think that was probably my longest break. I think I got about an hour, maybe like an hour and a half, maybe. I've really, honestly, I don't remember. I know a lot of the time.
Fair.
I think I probably just had like a 30-minute stint here or there. But I think total, I probably had like under 5, probably. Not enough. But with Meg's help, we got the event done.
So that's a perfect segue into Vic's next question. I think it was like, are you more or less scared of Meg now?
Probably more. I think genuinely that there were times, it was that first time when because I didn't realize I hadn't actually had breakfast, and when Meg was bringing me the sandwich, we were still trying to sort out some of the troubleshooting issues with the live stream, and I was sat next to Vicky trying to sort it out, and every time I'd suddenly see Meg walk around the corner, I'd be like, oh my god, I've got nowhere to hide. And it was like, oh crap. And I'm like, I haven't eaten yet, I haven't slept. And then like throughout the rest of the event, even if I hadn't actually done anything wrong, if I was off court doing something and I suddenly saw Meg, I just immediately got scared and worried that I'd done something wrong, even if I hadn't, because I was naughty in the first sort of 12 hours, 24 hours, that for the rest of the event, I just had, as soon as I saw Meg, I just was conditioned to think, shit.
Have I eaten? Have I drunk?
Yeah.
Am I going to get told off for not looking after myself?
There was one point I hadn't done something I think I was supposed to have, and it might have been Ross, maybe, that I was sat next to, and we were waiting for you to say something. You didn't. I went, yes. But yeah, probably more scared now. It came from a place of love, and 100% it was the right thing. But yeah, it was quite funny.
I think it was the first moment where you kind of realised that I wasn't going to let you get away with not looking after yourself. And genuinely, I handed you the sandwich and I said, and Vicky was sat next to you, and I said, I am going to be back here in 10 minutes. You need to have eaten something. And it was that moment I came back and you were like, I've eaten half of it, I swear. I was just like, okay, good.
Good.
As long as you've eaten something. And that was and I think that was the thing. I did that with a lot of people. And I think there was that sudden realization that I wasn't going to take no for an answer, because I was so intent that everybody was going to make it through without putting themselves at risk. And it can be really hard to look after yourselves when you've got that much going on, 100%. When you're that sleep deprived. And yes, okay, maybe I was also sleep deprived, and I did have people checking in on me as well, and that was what was really nice and struck me as kind of something that showed that we were a big community in that setting. But it was constant. Have you had anything to eat? Have you had anything to drink? You know, I'd see your water bottle empty, and if 10 minutes later it was still empty, I was going, right, I'd go pick it up, I'd bring it back, and I'd be like, you need to drink something now. Because it's just that moment of going, you're not able to think about all these things, so I'm going to do it for you. And it is going to come from a place of love, but it's going to come from a strict place of love, because you need to eat and you need to sleep and you need to drink.
Needed, like, as I say, because it was so start-stop, and it, from a player standpoint, it was hard sometimes. You would kind of forget you need to do those things. And Vicky even pointed out, as I was eating the sandwich, because I was trying to sort out the issues on the stream, she said there were points she would just slowly see me stop chewing, and like I would just be holding the food in my mouth and I just wasn't chewing, and I was like, oh yeah, and she would have to kind of remind me to keep chewing. So like, very clearly we were completely out of it. Like, it was, as we've said a few times now, it was just such a strange experience, to be honest. And it was hard to it was hard, just to be honest. And it very, very much was an entire team effort. And like, when we get, fingers crossed, when we get the certificate and everything, I'm going to make sure it's all printed. We had like a flag for the event. And my plan is to like chop up the flag into different pieces and put a part of the flag and something else like in like a frame with the certificate, so everyone can have one. Because it's not, as we say, it's not just the players. It was all of our volunteers. It was Hartlepool Mavericks. Like, Henry from House of Dodge provided us with our event balls for free. It very much was an entire community effort. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Dodge Central. It wasn't just me and Meg. It was very much, it was everyone.
It was everyone. And you know, we had long conversations, and I know Alex has said, you know, naming everybody, we don't want to miss anyone out. But I think it's safe to say that everybody that was a volunteer for that weekend, you know, I certainly couldn't have done it without them. You know, and the event wouldn't have been possible without them, because we needed people to referee and witness, and you know, and run around and ball retrieve or run out for certain things. And that's, you know, Andy couldn't witness because Benji was a part of the event. So Andy was like, right, what do you need me to do? And he was always like, yes, man. He was like, I'll ball retrieve. And I think he ball retrieved for like 4 hours straight at like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
And then he stole Tash's catch.
Yes,
that was so funny. Yeah, at one point, Tash was left in on her own at the back of the court, and she couldn't move much because of her knee injury, and a ball hit her in the chest. She lay down at the back, managing to stay within the back line. And as she's holding her hands up with this ball about to fall into her hands, Andy at the back of court just reaches on as a ball retriever and just takes the ball away from her. And we all just watched up and like, oh my God. And, like, obviously it's not like it didn't, you know, it's not like it's an actual match at Super League and it mattered, but it was just so funny.
It was so funny. But I think that's it. Like, we wouldn't have been able to do it without every single one of those people. And I think, you know, credit where credit is due. You know, Ross and Vicky, we brought them on quite quickly because they both said that they were free and available to help with the event. But we had Macaulay, we had Bryn, we had Alla, we had James, you know, we had Finn, and between the rest of them, they helped us cover the timetable for reffing and for witnessing. You know, Andy was incredible at helping, and Steph and Lucinda from Hartlepool just, you know, is there anything like that we can do? Ewan and the juniors, you know, ball retrieving and sorting things out and just being there to help us it just wouldn't have happened without them. And obviously I've had my friends Kai and Lucy. I took their kitchen away from them for a good couple of hours at a time to cook everything for all the players. So, you know, without this community of people around us supporting us, regardless as to whether or not they were playing, it was impossible to do without them. And I think, as we said at the beginning, you know, Finn became a firm favourite from a commentary perspective, and you had all these people reaching out to him on the live stream asking him questions. And I just think that it goes to show that the sport can't happen without the correct buy-in and the correct support, but the event wouldn't happen without both sides. And I think everybody, regardless of their role, just was such an incredible person to be there to support. Nothing was too small or too big. Everyone was in it. What can I do to help? How can I support? Is there anything that I can do? Do you need some help? And it was constant checking in on each other. And it was so nice that there was no one person that I had to go and have a conversation with and say, hey, chill out. I think people were only scared of me because I was being so firm that they took care of themselves. So it was incredible.
I think that's a great place to bring this to an end. I have one last question, and that's mainly to Alex or the other players who played. So do you think after those 48 hours, this made you a better dodgeball player? And is it worthwhile as a training camp?
Great question. I was actually thinking it because I think part of the 60% thing was, even if sometimes you did want to throw a bit harder, because I found early on, and I think a lot of people, when you suddenly throw a bit gentler, it's very easy to get caught. So it was very good catching practice for a lot of people. But I ended up spending a lot of my time just trying to aim for feet. And a bit of a Quentin Tarantino, just staring at feet for 48 hours. And I think in certain aspects, it's kind of helped me kind of work on accuracy for a little bit. But I know for a fact that when I go to training tonight, because I didn't go last week, it's probably going to be a bit of a rude awakening. Because although, as you say, we were playing at a decent pace, I think the actual speed of people going for a proper run encounter, suddenly sprinting up at me is going, oh my God, what are you doing? And
just scream 60% at them.
Yeah. I think it's helpful. Like, obviously the same with anything. Like, they say if you want to become like an expert in anything, is it like 6,000 hours they say you need to put in, or
10,000, but it's been revisited a few times.
Yeah, so realistically 40 hours, it's going to get you there. It's going to help. So you can work on different things, but I think it's good for helping your mechanics. But I think the way your decision making, your speed of the game, not quite there.
No.
I do think it was nice though. Like, we saw the development of some people over that 48 hours where they weren't confident in catching in that first 12, but progressively as time goes on,
in the final
she just
12 hours.
was catching everything. It's just one of those things where it's like you almost have to be more inventive as a player. It's not just about I hit, I throw, I catch, I dodge. It's how am I going to manage myself over the next 3 hours? And it was really interesting to see how people were inventive with their endurance game as well. Because from an outsider's perspective, having to write stuff down, at no point did I feel like I was writing less or more. So that kind of goes to show just how the game changed in terms of countering and in terms of catching and hits. But actually we were always writing. It was, it was quite consistent with how much was going into each set. So it was definitely, you could see people become a bit more inventive in their play and start to rely on different things, or start to really try and develop, that catchability, because they were like, I don't want to have to try and throw this again and hit that person out. So I'm just going to try and catch them instead. And it did become that sort of inventive. How am I going to get this person out if I don't want to go and throw? How am I going to get this person out if I don't want to catch them? So it was really interesting to watch that full 48.
Although, to be fair, I will say my left arm has improved a lot from relying on it. So that's one thing. You can spend the time working on your weak arm.
All right. So what I take from this, it might not be the most time efficient way to practice dodgeball, but it definitely gets you somewhere closer. And maybe I can learn to catch that way. So I'll keep that in the back of my mind for future references.
Yeah, just book out a hall next weekend, mate. And
sure, maybe.
Just go for a nice little
maybe
stint.
Maybe not, but maybe. No, it sounded like a lot of fun, a lot of effort. For me, it's good to see it from the outside, and I think it's awesome that you guys did it. I really hope and cross my fingers that you get that well-deserved record from Guinness, and I'm looking forward to seeing the record in the Guinness book. And yeah, apart from that, thanks guys for putting effort into the sport, into the community, and keep doing that. I personally really appreciate it, and I think pretty much any people that care about dodgeball should do so as well. So yeah, with that, keep throwing those balls, try not to get caught, and take care, everyone. That's it.
Amazing.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Ambulance.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much for having us.